Hi there, this is Rob Acker with Ultimate Academy and Smith Bilingual English School. Today we're going to talk about some of the interesting parts of cultural nuances. This is another installment on that subject. Today's subject will be about the top 10 most annoying or irritating things that foreigners can perceive about Chinese culture and kind of the Chinese way of life. Keep in mind that this is more coming from an American mindset and perspective, and this isn't an all-inclusive list, and it's just one person's opinion. But I think that you guys can learn a lot from this, so let's get started. On our top 10 list, number 10, we have honking. So this is something that you may notice, especially if you come from a less major city. Obviously, if you come from New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta or Chicago, you may be more accustomed to honking than most people. But even then, the type of honking that you find in China just, I think, far surpasses anything that you've seen in the United States. I say this primarily because, especially if you're in one of the big cities such as Beijing, oh my goodness, you're in for a ride because the honking, it just out of nowhere just seems to happen so often and so much that most people in China don't even seem to notice that people are honking because it occurs so often and so much. But that can be something that in your first few weeks in China can seem a little annoying or irritating. Going on to our next one, number 9 is modesty to a fault. Especially coming from an American background, we're really taught, hey, achieve your dreams, stand up for what you believe and, try your best. And who cares if it's a long shot? You still have a chance, right? Well, in Chinese thinking and Chinese culture, it's very rare to find somebody who has that kind of gusto and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, the harsh realities of Chinese society have been beat into them from a pretty young age. So it's not uncommon to find somebody that you say, wow, your English is really good. And you might encourage them to try something with it, such as, oh, you should try to work on becoming an interpreter or a translator, or hey, there's an English competition, you should enter it. And let's say, no, my English is too poor, I can't do it, I shouldn't even try. And it almost is just, heartbreaking to a certain extent to see this kind of thinking that's just predominant in Chinese society, that most people don't have a lot of self-confidence because they've been taught that if you're too confident, then that'll be perceived as arrogance. So they're taught to be extremely modest in all situations, but it can be a little annoying for us Westerners. Up next, at number 8, we have hierarchy. This is something that to us in the West, we don't really have this concept of hierarchies. I mean, yes, you have your boss at your company, or, you have to listen to your parents to a certain extent, but we also believe in equality and fairness. But that doesn't exist really in China to the degree that it does in America. The hierarchy says that you have a position and a place in society, that's your place and that's your position. And if that's your position, you have no business going up above and beyond that. So fairness and things like equality, they don't really factor into the equation. And that can be frustrating for us because we might say, yeah, why can't I go and talk to this person? They say, well, you're here and they're there. So, good luck, but you can't do it. So that can be a little bit infuriating at times. And it carries over into things like relationships or marriages even. So it can be somewhat problematic and somewhat annoying. For number 7, the one I've picked here is slowness, or kind of giving you the runaround, especially for business people. You might have heard about it, but in America, if you want to get together and talk business with somebody and get something done, often you can talk with somebody, have a meeting with them, and then that day decide to do business together. Unfortunately, in China, that's just simply not the case. In some cases, it can take months, if not years, to get a successful business partnership off the ground. And the kind of slowness giving you the runaround, what can happen sometimes is, you'll say, okay, yeah, we'll do this. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, we'll do that. And then the next day you're like, well, I thought we said we were going to do this. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, we did say that. But yeah, we didn't do it. And so sometimes it can be really irritating and infuriating, this kind of slowness, what we perceive as just it being a slow process to get things done. In America, if there's a problem that arises, you get on it, you get it done, it's taken care of. In China, we'll get to it when we get around to it. And that's just kind of the mentality, which can be really irritating for us Americans that we want instant gratification right now. The next one on our list, at number 6, we have stereotypes with racism, and of course going back to staring. And so one of the irritating things that you may notice when you go to China is that there are stereotypes about you as a foreigner. This can be encompassed in anything from their body language, where they're staring at you, to people coming up to you and saying like, hey, can I have a picture with you? Almost to a point where you can feel somewhat put off by it. And you'll even notice it as well when you go to, say for example, go shopping. A lot of people will give you prices that are very different from the kinds of prices they would give to local people. And part of that too has to do with bargaining and haggling. If you go to a respected establishment within a store where the price tag's already on it, you don't have to worry about it. But on the street, definitely, people will try to rip you off, and the perception is that you're a foreigner, you're rich. And even if that may not be the case, it's still the perception, and that can be irritating at times, that people just think you're just made of money. Oftentimes, especially if you come for a vacation, people may not understand that, like, hey, you know, I had to spend several months of my salary saving up just to come here for a couple weeks, and then going back, and I won't have hardly any savings left. That doesn't really factor into their minds. They think you're from America. America's rich, therefore you must be rich. And unfortunately, you know, of course it's not the case with everyone, but it happens a lot. The next one, number 5, is Guanxi, and somewhat kind of segueing into corruption. So Guanxi is this concept of connections, and we have it somewhat in the United States, but not to the degree that they have it in China. Where it really becomes bad is where it comes to this idea of corruption. So for example, like I might go to a mall to do some promotion for a school, and it'll be like an outside shopping mall. We'll set up our things, and then a person will come up to us, you know, security or whatever, and they'll say, you can't do that here. And literally right across from us, there will be another group doing the same thing, and we'll be like, well, what about them? They're doing the same thing as us. And they'll be like, oh, don't worry about them, shoo. And so you're like, well, what the hell? And what it is that that person has relationships or has Guanxi with this security guy. So they get to sit there and do that, but you don't get to sit there and do that. So that kind of thing can get really irritating, especially when it comes to government processes. Say, for example, if you have some paperwork that needs to get done. If you've got Guanxi within the government, they can snap their fingers and it's done like that. But if you don't have Guanxi, you might have to wait months for something to go through. So that can be extremely irritating for us Americans, especially because we perceive that as being corruption and immoral. But that's not the way it's seen in China. The next one, number 4, traffic rules. Oh my goodness, there could be a whole segment on this, and probably I will do one. Just the other day, we're driving home in rush hour, and on our side of the lane, the traffic has come to a complete halt, and has for several minutes. We finally get onto one of the side streets and drive by and find out what happened was, this is a 4-lane road, 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. And so the traffic coming towards us, what they did was they decided that because the traffic's going too slow, they decided they're going to go across the double yellow line and come use our lanes to make forward progress. Which in America, you'll never do that, ever. It's just insane. It's crazy. Why would you do that? But yes, there was traffic that then piled up into our lanes of traffic going the opposite direction to where it's gridlocked. You won't, I think, ever see that in America. But it happens quite frequently in China. The traffic rules don't seem to apply in the way that we apply them in America. Other things will be, you know, they'll turn right in front of oncoming traffic for a left turn. And that's something that in America, no, we'll never do it. But the mentality in China is if you want to get to that left turn, you kind of have to do that. But in America, if you do that, you'll get hit and it'll be your fault. So that stuff can be extremely irritating. The next one we're getting to, number 3 on our list here is lip smacking. Sorry, it took a second there. So, smacking of your lips at the dinner table. This is a big no-no in America. You can't sit there and go, oh, that will drive most people crazy in America if you do that. But in China, there is no concept of this being bad manners. The concept is that if you really enjoy your food, good. Most people in America, that will absolutely drive them insane if you're sitting at a dinner table and people do that. Also, slurping of soup and slurping of noodles, not seen in any way as being bad manners. So people will just sit there and you're just going to have to deal because there's no way the rest of China is going to change for you. So that's something that good luck getting used to that one. Just know that, hey, you don't have to worry about you smacking your lips. So have a try, give it a good go and see what you think about it. It can be liberating, but at the same time, really crazy and weird. Number two is fake, shoddy, and dangerous merchandise. So this is something, again, that in America we don't really deal with as much. The fakes can be really cool because you can, buy some fake Rolex watches for a cheap price and say, hey, buddy, I got you a Rolex, even though you know it's fake and, no big deal. But there's some things, especially when it comes to food or cosmetic items, it can be very dangerous. There's shampoo that's sold sometimes that will actually make you go bald. That's something that in America, no, that company will get sued and they'll lose everything. In China, it can happen. And one of the most notorious incidents involved a milk company that put a synthetic plastic in its milk that resembled protein so that they could say their milk had more protein than its competitors. Well, eventually what ended up happening was many people ended up dying, especially babies, as a result of ingesting this milk that was obviously clearly poisonous. And, in America, if something like that happened, forget it, that company is gone. But that company is still around today in China, and people still buy that milk, which is incomprehensible to us in America. If a company releases products that kill people, that company is out of business, period. There's no way you'll ever trust that company again. But in China, it's a little different. And that brings us now to the final one, the most irritating or annoying thing that Chinese culture does. And I call it obliviousness, or just kind of rudely cutting in line or having no real concept of personal space. So, for example, if you go to line up, they'll just cut in front of you. And that, you'll be waiting in line for quite a long time and somebody will just come up and just walk right in as though they own the place. And that is endlessly infuriating, at least to me, if not to other foreigners as well. If you go up to the ticket window at a train station to buy your ticket, there will be a yellow line that it clearly says stand behind this line. And people they'll press up on it like they're trying to get ahead of you. And you're like, dude, get the hell back. What are you doing? Another thing is like at a hospital where, there should be privacy between a doctor and the patient. Unfortunately, what'll happen is you'll literally have the people outside, waiting outside in the hall. They will come inside and be listening to your consultation with your doctor. And that's something that in America, oh my God, it's unbelievable. We can't stand it. So yeah, those are the top 10 things that most people will find incredibly annoying or irritating in China, from least annoying to most annoying. I hope you guys enjoyed the list and learned something cool. Besides that, please take care, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. See ya.